The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Objective coverage. Hey, that's new.
If we get caught, we're going to jail.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app.
I'm going to need to see some identification.
Back to Dave Hooker.
Welcome. He is Caleb Calhoun. I am Dave Hooker as we join you each and every weekday at 10 a.m. Be sure and like and subscribe on YouTube. And if you got comments on Twitter, you can leave them here and we'll get to those. So here we go. A lot to get to. I've got some Tennessee recruiting news. Been doing a little bit of digging. We have some announcement dates. I'm going to tell you what I feel as far as where Tennessee's class may end up at the end of July. Also, the passing of a legend that once coached at Tennessee. We'll visit about that. Who's the biggest snub in Tennessee sports history? Because I think Jaylen Brown, and not to make this the Celtics thing, got snubbed by not making the Olympic team. Also, 2 more Georgia players arrested. We'll get into that. And then I wanted to touch base on a baseball topic because the whole concept of pitchers only pitching a certain amount of the pitch count and not getting a no-hitter came up with LSU's Paul Skenes here just recently. So would Tony Vitello run out there and pull a guy out who had a no-hitter going in the 6th or 7th inning? We'll discuss that. We've got a lot going on, and we will begin with some recruiting. First of all, Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
Dave, I am good. I've been thinking of you because of the Netflix Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders documentary that's going on right now.
Oh no,
did you ever think about joining them?
Is that from a negative perspective?
No, it's just life of a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, pretty much.
Oh, okay. Because there were some weird accusations about some people in their media department there as it pertained to cheerleaders. And was okayed by a certain owner who may or may not be Jay Jones.
I'd love more details on this one.
All you got to do is Google it. You'll imagine Bud Ford, the old Tennessee sports information director, with too much interest in women. That's basically what it came down to. It was pretty simple. A guy that had too much interest in women was certainly Lane Kiffin, and we want to get to
what a transition.
Yeah, not my best. Monte Kiffin passes away, and I remember the discussion being when he was hired, how long do you have Monte Kiffin, his father, who was the defensive coordinator? Now, for those that don't know or are too young, I want to remind you that Monte Kiffin, at the time when he was hired, everybody wondered how much time he had left because he was 59 years old when he got hired. So 69, excuse me. So there was some intrepidation with the hire, but if you hadn't have packaged Monte Kiffin with Lane, I don't think it would have been nearly as well accepted, Caleb. I believe that it would have just been thought of as an okay hire. When you threw in Monty, when you threw in Ed Orgeron, that's what changed the feel of that hire and how everything was going to be different, and it wasn't the good old boy network anymore.
Yeah, that was the big part of the Lane Kiffin hire, and I always thought that was a negative of it. This is why I was never a fan of the hire, because I don't think you should ever hire somebody because of the staff they can bring in, because that staff's going to leave if they're good. I've always felt the head coach is in control of the program. At the time, I don't anymore, but I actually questioned Lane Kiffin's offensive acumen at the time because his only resume was being offensive coordinator at USC, which, Dave, you and I could have been offensive coordinator of that talent during that time, remember?
Yes.
And so I wasn't as big on the hire as many others. I did think highly of Ed Orgeron's reputation as a defensive line coach and a recruiter. That's as far as I thought of Ed Orgeron. I didn't think of him able to do anything else whatsoever.
I'll be real honest with you. I didn't know. I came away from that press conference when Lane Kiffin was introduced, and I didn't know if he would have success or not. I thought it would be really hard for him to fail with Monte Kiffin and Ed Orgeron, who, by the way, passed away. What was the official reason given for Monte's passing?
Monte Kiffin, I thought it might have been just natural causes.
Yeah, I imagine so. I believe he was.
Don't quote me on that, but
Okay, I believe. Yeah, he was in his mid 80s.
mid-80s.
Yeah, so a lifelong coach. I am glad that he has been able to see his son have success at Ole Miss, because one of the strongest memories I have from the Lane Kiffin era is Monte Kiffin, an NFL guy, being so incredibly stunned that Tennessee's fans were mad that night that Lane Kiffin decided to leave. He said, "Why are they so upset? And get another coach." And he was just really taken aback. And I can't imagine, you'll be like this one day, you don't want to think about everybody in a city hating your son. Okay. So it was a weird position for him to be in. I'm glad he saw Lane have some success at another school to know that he didn't chuck his whole career.
Yeah, it's funny because and Derek brings it up on the message board, and Dave, you can speak to this more than I can, but I had always heard reports that Monty was not in favor of Lane leaving for USC, that he thought it was best for Lane to stay at Tennessee, and he wanted to stay at Tennessee too.
I can't tell you that with 100% confidence, but what I was hoping to do just then was kind of hint at that. I got the feeling that, yes, he didn't want to go. He didn't want to go either. He thought they had a good thing going. And I think his son made a quick, impetuous decision. A lot of these decisions you take at least 24 hours to think about. I'm not sure that he did with this one.
Yeah. And for those who don't remember, Lane was 33 at the time. It's crazy for me to think about just that I'm just 3 years older than that. But I look back and I'm like, yeah, at 33, you can sometimes make rash decisions when you're up and coming. I wonder, Dave, if Tennessee had stuck with Lane Kiffin, if he had worked out, if he had not bolted for USC, how much longer would he have kept Monte Kiffin on staff? And if he couldn't have kept Monte Kiffin on staff, do you think the fan base would have started to question Lane himself? Because as you know, Monte Kiffin did get fired at USC, and that was just a precursor to Lane getting fired.
Well, I don't think they had a problem. I don't think they would have had a problem separating ways. I don't think Monty wanted to coach all that much longer. I think he was hanging on because of his son. So if his son had said, they're coming at me, if I get rid of you, you can retire and play with your grandkids more, and you don't have to worry about coaching, and it extends my opportunity, I think they would have been okay with that. I really do. I think they would have said, well, let's do the best thing for both parties, because I've been coaching for 50 years and I don't really much feel like it anymore. Look at my fantastic shirt. It is monogrammed. It looks awesome, and it's brought to you by Apex Apparel Group Design. Call to action is this: 15% off your order. You've got to do it. Your first order, do it now. 865-919-3001. 865-919-3001. Call Tyler, say Off the Hook Sports sent you. And for all your promotional needs, especially the spirit wear, all kinds of items that you can choose from, and they're all taken care of, just call Tyler at 865-919-3001. And I would say this too: we have to give Lane Kiffin credit for fielding a respectable defense without having his father as the defensive coordinator, correct? I mean, he's gotten by, right?
He has. And Lane Kiffin, we've always talked about this, Dave. There's two types of coaches. There's the coach that's kind of the CEO, and then the coach where they're gurus on one side of the ball, and then they just trust their staff on the other side. Lane Kiffin was absolutely that, right? He was just the offensive guru, and he let Monte Kiffin run the defense. Now, based on what you're telling me, which I believe too, because Monte Kiffin was 69, that's really even a bigger indictment of the decision to hire Lane Kiffin, honestly, because a lot of it was about him being able to bring Monte Kiffin and Ed Orgeron. And we knew Ed Orgeron was somewhat of a mercenary, and outside of the state of Louisiana, where he was most loyal to, he was going to go wherever the best place for him was. And we knew Monte Kiffin's time was limited.
Okay, but Monte's time's limited. But when I say limited, I think everybody expected he'd coach 5 more years at least. And then you should be able to have your program on a solid footing where you should be able to go out and hire a coach. I agree with you. You should not hire a coach because of the staff he can bring in. However, getting Monte Kiffin as a part of the staff, I can see pushing me over the edge between that guy and somebody else that is kind of exciting. Does that make sense? I mean, if you're 50-50 and you're bringing Monte and Orgeron, you don't like it at all, do you? I can tell you. That's fine.
I did not like Tennessee's whole coaching search during that time because their top choice for a minute was Butch Davis, if you remember, after Fulmer was fired, which I thought was a terrible idea. I'm not to brag about myself because I'm the most humble person who has ever been on YouTube, guys. I'm a very humble person.
Yeah, there's no question about that.
I wanted Brian Kelly, funny enough. I was very high on Brian Kelly after his success at Cincinnati.
That was total bullshit.
You don't believe me? You don't believe me? No, I was dead set on Brian Kelly. And the year after, he went undefeated at Cincinnati. And by the way, you can question his lack of national titles at Notre Dame, but anybody that knows that job knows it's borderline impossible to win a national title.
No, I mean, I know all that, but and I'm not doubting that you thought he should have been hired at the time, but I don't think you look back at that and say that would have been a fantastic hire, or would I thought that Tennessee's fan base wanted to take the chance of a way different approach. And Brian Kelly, let's be honest, is similar to a Philip Fulmer approach. Older guy, does things by the book. Lane Kiffin's coming out there and he's throwing the ball around the park and he's exciting. Not the same offense he runs now, and he's a young guy. I got the feeling that Tennessee's fan base wanted a complete change. If you would have just hired Brian Kelly, who was in the Philip Fulmer mold, would you agree with that?
Somewhat. I don't think Philip Fulmer was ever going to do videos of himself dancing with recruits or putting on a fake accent to appease an area the way Brian Kelly does. But
I could argue Brian Kelly was going to figure out a way to stop a draw in the 2001 SEC championship game. So I'm not saying, but that's
my point. Brian Kelly's a better coach than Philip Fulmer.
I agree. But there's somewheres along the same mold. If you went to the fan base, I'll ask you on the message board, if they went to use the fan base and said, we're getting rid of Philip Fulmer for another old guy named Brian Kelly, nobody would have been okay with that. When Lane came riding in on this big orange Tennessee walking horse, everybody thought it was the greatest hire ever. Maybe not you, Caleb, but the community loved it. As a matter of fact, I would argue that it rubbed some salve over the firing of Philip Fulmer because people were still upset about that. That's why they made the move so fast. That in Washington wanted Lane bad.
Well, it's okay. So this was a unique time in college football because Nick Saban was just about to build the Alabama dynasty and Florida was at the top. And I think, Dave, Florida was much more the flashy trash talker program. I mean, criminals too. But Florida, they really rubbed it in your face that they were successful, right? Under Urban Meyer. They went out of their way to rub it in your face. I think Tennessee was tired of losing and Florida rubbing it in their face that they're beating them. So they wanted Lane Kiffin to say, hey, if we're going to lose, at least we can talk a lot of trash and, rub them the wrong way. What was hidden underneath all of that, though, was Florida's the way they carried themselves as a program. They were about to collapse, and Alabama, who stayed under wraps and just went about their business the way they carried themselves as a program, they were about to take off. I think Tennessee wanted the Florida model more than the Alabama model. Now, I say that Lane Kiffin wanted the Alabama model. I will never forget the press conference ahead of the Tennessee-Alabama game in 2009. You probably remember it, where Lane goes, Florida's a great program, but Alabama's really who we want to model ourselves after. And I think Lane knew, and we all found out in that SEC title game that year, that Alabama was about to take over the SEC and Urban Meyer and Florida were about to implode. There was clearly some knowledge of that.
Yeah. Crystal says it felt like Lane Kiffin was the cure-all at the time. It did. Somebody said on the message board if Caleb was as smart as he thought he was, that he'd be on ESPN. No, he is smart, and that's why he's not. That's not the job you want. Today's tough question has to do with the Kiffins.
Could you imagine, though, remember the press conference? I just had to point this up real quick. Remember that Monte Kiffin, Ed Orgeron press conference where they were both introduced, and Ed Orgeron said that, the most important thing is for the athletes to go to school and graduate. I'm like, okay, yeah, you really, really care about that, Ed Orgeron. If there's a coach in the world that doesn't care about that, it's Ed Orgeron.
I really don't remember. I don't remember that press conference at all. Maybe I may have been on a recruiting trip or something. Did they hold it together? Is that what they did?
Yeah, Lane Kiffin introduced them together.
It was the worst kept secret. Oh, but today's tough question is right now. It's brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. If Lane Kiffin would have stayed at UT, the Vols would have blank. Not won a title. Won one championship. Won multiple titles. Your thoughts? Today's tough question.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
I can't say that Lane Kiffin would have won a title, so I'm going to go with not won a title, which is 38%. 48% said won one championship. 14% said we'll win multiple championships. Now, we had Jimmy Himes on, and we asked him a similar question, and he said, I'm not going to guarantee a championship, but I guarantee you he would be under NCAA investigation. So that's one of the factors. The other factor is the one you just brought up, and that's Alabama's coming up, and Alabama's going to be there. So if you're talking about a non-Alabama SEC, then yes, I think that in a decade, I think it's very, very reasonable to think that Lane Kiffin could have won 3 SEC championships, come close, or won a national title as well. But not with Nick Saban in the conference.
No, not at all. I do think that Lane Kiffin – I actually think Lane Kiffin would have won – ready for this? He'd won the SEC in 2011. That year specifically. That's the year that Les Miles squeaked by Alabama in the regular season, that 9-6 game, number 2 versus number 1. And LSU would have played Tennessee, and Lane Kiffin would have had his recruits in, and then it becomes a match of wits. Lane Kiffin's brains versus Les Miles' brains. Now, whose brains are you taking in that situation?
I'll tell you what, I'm taking Kiffin's brains in that one, just like I take the brains of this guy right here. The show represented by Banks and Jones. He's got the brains to be Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksandjones.com. And we got recruiting news coming up. I know you're excited. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
4 downs, 4 questions, 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
How about we talk some recruiting, as July's kind of like the new January in that you put your final touches on a class, and that is essentially what Tennessee is doing. They have another scholarship available with Shandavian Bradley's departure as he decides to transfer to a junior college. So let's take a look at some recruiting. It's brought to you by our good friends at TriStar Hats. For the latest in TriStar Hats, go to the original TriStarHatsCo.com, TriStarHatsCo.com, hats, apparel, and more. TriStar Hats. Let's start with a gentleman that may just be a defensive end. He could grow into a defensive tackle, but I watched him. He looks like a defensive end to me. Brandon Caesar could be the guy that steps in and makes you feel a little bit better about Bradley's departure. Caesar isn't as highly ranked as Bradley was out of high school. He's a 4-star prospect. Caesar's rated as a 3-star prospect, the 28th best prospect in Ohio. He took an official visit to Tennessee. I think the Vols are in great shape for the 6'4", 255-pounder, thanks to Rodney Garner. Also considering Ohio State and West Virginia, I like where Tennessee stands with him.
Yeah, if they get him, it could be a little bit by default because I think Ohio State would be the favorite to land him, but he is only a 3-star. They maybe have their sights set higher. West Virginia would be the other place for playing time. The drawback with a guy like Brandon Caesar is the playing time issue, but I actually don't think, Dave, that he would go to Tennessee as an edge rusher. I think he would go to Tennessee as that hybrid 3-technique, 5-technique defensive lineman, which for those who don't know, Tennessee, Rodney Garner's wanted that, and he hasn't had it since 2021 with Jaquan Blakely and Caleb Herring. That's something they were lacking in 2022. I think they're hoping that Dominic Bailey finally emerges to do that this year along with Jason Jenkins, but what I'm talking about is the guy that Dave...
You're talking about like an Aaron Donald type?
Yes, obviously
like
not
a lighter guy. Okay.
Like a lighter guy that can line up in the middle.
We can probably meet in the medium here, in the middle here, because when I looked at him, he's a weird size for me. 6'5", 255 pounds. So that could be grow into a 300-pound defensive tackle, or that could be stay lean and be a fast twitch defensive end / edge rusher, which that's what I came away thinking. But if you're saying he could be a nimble-footed, quick disruptor in the interior, that's almost as valuable as a good pass rusher from the edge.
Think about it this way. You know how not in all 3-4s, but the 3-4 defense that Kirby Smart and Jeremy Pruitt and Nick Saban ran, the front line, it wasn't one nose tackle and 2 defensive ends. It was one nose tackle and another defensive tackle out on the outside, and then a defensive end. And what he would be like is a lot of times, if you guys will ever watch, Tim Banks will sometimes only use 3-down linemen. And typically there will be a tackle lined up on the end in those situations. And that's what they want Dominic Bailey to be. That's what they're hoping Jason Jenkins would be. That's what I think Brandon Caesar would be. They're usually you would almost call them tweeners. They're not the 300-pounder, but they're not the nimble 250 guy. They're like 280, like roughly around there.
Hell Caesar is what down, Coop?
First.
Yep.
Coop here. First down.
Thank you. And what should we do, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
We'll do that. Now, second down.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
A lot of Coop. Linebacker Christian Gass. Gass scheduled to announce his decision on July 20th. As we have on our Hooker's Corner page, we'd love for you to be a member of that. Just $9.98 a month. But let's talk about Gass for a second. 6'3", 215-pound prospect. He's taken official visits to Florida, Kentucky, Southern Cal, Georgia, and Tennessee. But from everybody I talked to, this looks like Tennessee's got a darn good shot at Gass. He's rated the number 131 prospect in the state, number 22 linebacker in the country, number 203 player. So this could be a default one too, where Georgia's not as crazy about him, maybe as we think they are. But nevertheless, based off his rating, whether or not Georgia actually offers him, I think this would be a significant pickup.
Yeah, so Rodney Garner and Mike Eberle are both going after him, Christian Gass, which suggests that they really do want him. The odd part is, Dave, I don't think he would play edge rusher at Tennessee. I think he'd probably play outside linebacker, be like in the wings for Arian Carter. And
let me be clear, these are just guys that are making their decision. These are not potential defense. I'm not talking about any position. These are just 3 guys that are making their decision. They're going to announce their decision in July. So regardless of position.
Right, exactly. So the same way you are seeing, like with Brandon Caesar and Christian Gass, you are seeing 2 adjacent edge rushers who aren't really full-on edge rushers, because Caesar would play more in the interior, and I think Gass would actually move more to a full-on linebacker, outside linebacker role. And so because of that, I think that Tennessee, I think right now they're just trying to get more depth in general on the front 7. And this is what I talked to you about the other day, Dave. I don't really think they are pushing themselves to add edge rushers. They're at the point now where, like, if we add another one, great. If not, we're so darn loaded there that they can borderline pull a Derek Dooley not recruiting an offensive lineman in 2012 if they need to.
Don't say that. What down, Coop?
Mays here. Third down.
This guy I thought was going to be a Vol a couple weeks ago. Lagonza Hayward, the safety, just seems like a matter of time at this point, right? He's going to announce on July 27th, 6'1", 200 pounds, 94th best prospect in the nation. a number 12 prospect in Georgia. Florida, South Carolina, and Georgia have been in the mix. This is one of those that's kind of painful because it's like pulling a Band-Aid off slowly. Is this thing just going to boom? Is it going to happen? Or it feels like it's dragging on a little bit, but I still think it's going to end up being Tennessee.
Yeah, this would be – he does have Tennessee as one of his top schools. He came out saying that, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, Tennessee's in his top 3. I do believe Georgia's making a run. Look, there is obviously that question. I mean, do you really want to be a defensive back in Tim Banks' system? And look, let's be honest. I think Florida's out of it. I think I wouldn't worry about Florida or South Carolina. I would worry about how much Georgia wants them. That becomes the real question because Dave, we've talked.
I agree with that. Can I go back to something you said? And I might write a column on this. I actually think playing in Tim Banks' system allows you to be more of a gambler, and maybe that's a positive, kind of like playing wide receiver or quarterback on the offensive side of the ball. I've been thinking about that lately. Does that float a boat?
Yeah, but all any NFL draft scout would ask you is why were you part of a secondary that was giving up 300 yards a game?
Yeah, but no. You've talked so much about analytics and Pro Football Focus. They're going to have the grade of the actual dude.
I think scouts are dumber than you think.
Well, you don't know. Wait. I may surprise you. All right, so we got one more down left. Let's get a little bit of recruiting.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here, 4th down.
All right, and Travis Smith, the wide receiver, scheduled to announce his decision on Saturday. I think that's going to be a Vol. And let me tell you a little something about this young man as he seems to fit Tennessee to an absolute T. Brought to you by Quality Tire Pro. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga and their community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, and more right there downtown Chattanooga and Cherokee. QualityTirePros.com. Travis Smith, 6'4", 199-pound receiver, just absolutely fits Tennessee to a T. Number 16 receiver in the nation, number 14 prospect in Georgia, and the number 113 prospect in the country. Now, I'm not saying this is the same thing as Deion Grant, Jamal Lewis, as Cozy Coleman, that trio that they got in 94, that ended up in some shape, form, or fashion leading to a championship in 94, 95, 96, 97. No, it would have been 95. So I'm not trying to say that it's that type of class or that they're having that type of success, but it's trending that way in Georgia, is it not?
It is, particularly for a player like Travis Smith. I mean, there is the Heupel discount for wide receivers. Dave, here's a throwback for you. Somebody who probably could have been an NFL receiver if it wasn't for the fact that he was stuck under Butch Jones and got hurt. But I'm reading a lot of Marquez North comparisons to Travis Smith, and
Marquez North was really good.
He was really good, and he was just stuck for the champion of life himself. There are stories that
he didn't have a lot of help with his high school teammate quarterback.
His high school teammate quarterback? Who was that?
Riley Ferguson.
Oh, that's right, because Riley Ferguson bolted and went to Memphis. That's right. I did forget about that.
That kid had a ton of ability. I was very high on him. I thought he was underrated, and he was a high 4-star.
Yeah, he was. He had that one-handed catch to beat South Carolina.
Yeah. Are you talking about North or Riley?
Oh, Riley.
Both of them.
Sorry, Riley.
Both of them. I thought, well, maybe not Marquez North underrated. I thought they were both elite players. How about some more recruiting? That's right. You'll want to hear what Caleb Calhoun has dug up. And also, you've got some Georgia players who thought, hey, I got an idea. Let's go get arrested. Everybody's doing it. It'll be a gas. Huh? How about that? 2 minutes with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Big Ben 4x4, $29,743. A 2024 T250 low roof cargo van, $51,955. 24 model Ford F-150 4x4 crew cab, $46,929. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
Do me a favor if you can, Caleb. Give me an idea of the way that the basketball recruiting calendar works. I've been a football guy my whole life, so I've covered it from afar. But now is the time where Tennessee, both men and women, are picking up some ladies and men that will be a part of their program. So give us an idea of the recruiting calendar. Then I want to dive into the Lady Vols out of the couple of twins out of New Jersey, and no, has nothing to do with double mint gum. Go ahead.
So the signing period for basketball is a little bit different. The initial signing date is November 13th. The final signing date is November the 20th. There is a regular period in the following April where there's an initial signing date in 2025 and then a final signing date on May the 21st. So there's a November the 13th through the 20th window for the early signing period and April the 16th through May 21st window. So a month and 5 days for the final signing period, or for the main signing period, and which is weird because, as you know, football signing period is fairly quick. So it kind of spreads out over time. No one really pays attention to it. There's not a lot of hoopla around signing day in basketball, but quite honestly, because the NCAA has so screwed up this recruiting calendar to basically make me and your life miserable in December, the National Signing Day in football doesn't have the same pizzazz it used to have either.
Switch up the poll question, get to the Lady Vols who pick up the twins. If Lane would have stayed at UT, the Vols would have blank not won a title. 47% won one championship, 42% won multiple titles, 10%. So there you go. New question that has to do with the Lady Vols is this. I believe in Kim Caldwell. I think for sure, not at all. You're pretty strong on Kim Caldwell, right? Before we get to these commitments, what do you love about Kim Caldwell? Other than a couple of pictures, she looks fantastic.
She is pretty good looking. I will say that.
Better looking, Tony Vitello, Kim Caldwell.
That is a show. That is a topic for another day. We definitely got to do that topic.
Table that puppy. Why do you believe in Kim Caldwell? You haven't seen her coach a game yet. Come on.
she's had success everywhere she's been, and she's got an entertaining brand of basketball, just as the women's game is starting to get more entertaining and more up-tempo and more perimeter-based, and they're getting Kim Caldwell at that time. So I think that's why I like Kim Caldwell.
Do you want to hear why I'm more open-minded to this than I would be otherwise? And you talking about a wild reference.
Let's go. Let's hear it.
It's the Golden State Warriors. If they hadn't have won a championship the way they did, and that changed my mindset where you have to have a big, and we're talking a decade ago, right? You have to have a big post down low. I thought you had to have that to win a championship. You get pretty far, but you had, even Michael Jordan had to have the Luke Longleys of the world and the Bill Winningtons of the world. That changed the way I thought about basketball forever. It was one of those fundamental shifts in my mind. So I do believe in her, I think. I'm not going to say for sure, but I can't say not at all. Now, if not for the fact that basketball has changed so much, and I think it benefits her and her style of play, I might go not at all. But now I'm leaning towards for sure, and I'm definitely, I think, and Kim Caldwell has an exciting style. I sometimes hate it when people say that because that almost sounds like a marketing ploy to sell more tickets. The exciting style, though, Caleb, has to win games, too.
The exciting style has won games. She took over Marshall last year, and in 1 year, she went and won the conference at Marshall and went to the NCAA tournament, and that was a bad program before. She's won a national championship at the lower level. Her exciting style has won games, and Danny White is the best hirer in the business.
Yeah. I mean, I can't argue with any of that. And if I had a bet, I bet she has success at Tennessee. But I think what we have to ask ourselves now, what would define success, Caleb? With the Lady Vols and the backdrop of winning multiple national championships, what would define success?
I mean, I think whenever you hire a coach, winning a national championship is a success. It's like at any sport in any level. It's like drafting a quarterback in football. If you win a Super Bowl with that quarterback, you drafted the right quarterback.
Yeah. All right, let's get to these commitments. Couple of twins, fraternal, identical. Do we know for sure?
Identical. Two identical twins. 5'5" point guards, both of them.
Both 5'5" point guards?
Yep.
Are they what's the plan? Are they gonna alternate, or are they gonna is one gonna move to the 2 like Tony Harris could not do ever?
Oh god. Well, that was a dumb decision to do in the first place.
Well, he really wants to shoot the ball more and move to the 2, so I guess we'll try him out there. It's just Kentucky.
At least he didn't send.
It's my Jerry Green. It's my Jerry Green impression.
At least he didn't send Tony Harris to a camp to try to be a better leader like Buzz Peterson did CJ Watson. But yeah, let's get to the Mia and Maya Paldo are both from Jersey, Morris Catholic High School in Denville. Mia is a 5-star and the number 13 ranked prospect. Maya is a 4-star and the number 49 ranked prospect. They are basically a package deal, both red hot 3-point shooters and extremely athletic. These are the type of players that fit Kim Caldwell's style of play. She wants to be able to push the tempo, run the break, and shoot a lot of threes. That's what both of these players do. That's what she's not been able to do in the transfer portal. When she was at Marshall, she had the 3-point shooting. She didn't have the size or athleticism. When she was at Tennessee, or when she took over Tennessee to implement her system, she had the size but not the athleticism. So she had to kind of retool her roster. She has gone for the size and the athleticism since she's been at Tennessee with players like Alyssa Latham and transfers like that, and Lazaria Spearman. But she has not actually gotten the 3-point shooters she needs, which it still leads me to believe that this year I have no idea what's in store for Tennessee Lady Vols this year. It's going to be the most chaotic team you've ever seen. They're going to turn up the tempo nonstop. The ball's going to be flying everywhere, and you're going to see a lot of misshots everywhere. It's probably going to be insane chaos.
Third quarter for what?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's going to be like, for those who don't remember Mark Gottfried and Alabama's basketball team in the 2000s, it's going to look like that when they had guys like Damari Carroll or Ernest Shelton and all they did was turn up the tempo. It was the most ridiculously athletic, insane team to watch.
I've got something
That's what they're going to look like.
something for Brian Rice, the voice of the Lady Vols, right now with the Mia and Maya.
Okay.
Okay. Here's a great call. Okay, one passes to the other, and the other scores. Mia Maya, what a play!
Wow, Dave.
See?
Wow, okay.
That's pretty good. Hit like and subscribe if you like that. I think everybody loves that.
But what those two bring is a level of they actually bring the shooting. So in 2 years, she'll have the size, the athleticism, and finally she'll have the shooting. I think that's what makes Tennessee dangerous at that point. And I don't know if Kim Caldwell's husband, who was her assistant at the other spot she was at, I think he is not doing that this year. I wouldn't either. I'd just sit back and watch my wife go win championships with the most fun style of basketball to watch.
Yeah. I'm still sticking on the phrase. I think that's great. Oh, Mia Maya. Is it Mayo or Maya?
Mia and Maya. Maya.
Oh, Mia Maya. That's a hefty meatball. Isn't there some commercial?
What?
Isn't there a Jeff Boyardee commercial? Is anybody my age anymore? Have I just out-aged everyone? I suppose that I have. I'll tell you who hasn't out-aged everyone. Are those guys that are driving around down in Athens, Georgia, and getting in trouble? Because why? It's fun, I guess. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
Oh, Mia Maya, 2 arrests in Georgia. Caleb, what do you got for me?
Yes. So Georgia starting linebacker Smale Munded was arrested by Athens Clark County Police Wednesday night on charges of speeding and reckless driving. 1 day earlier, freshman offensive lineman Bo Hughley was arrested on similar charges. This is the 19th arrest. They're now at 19 arrests since January of 2023 after the horrific incident with Jaylen Carter that got 2 teammates killed because of drag racing. Even crazier. Are you ready for this, Dave?
I'm ready.
Kirby Smart had somebody go speak to the team on Tuesday about these issues and why they need to be smarter on the road with their traffic. And literally that night, Bo Hughley got arrested, and the next day, Smale Monday got arrested.
Too late. And it could end up being the Achilles heel of Kirby Smart. You cannot add discipline where there was not discipline. You can't go backwards. You can loosen up. You can be too much of a dictator and back off. You can't go the other way. So they're not listening to him, what he's saying about cars. And if a couple of major incidents happen like have already happened, this could be his undoing. This could be the early stages of a problem. And it's already a problem.
Early stages.
It's already a problem of a problem that causes you a job. So, and I want to do this too, because we have a lot of Tennessee fans. We have a lot of South Carolina fans, a lot of LSU fans. We have a lot of different fans. But if you're a Georgia fan and you want to respond to this and tell me that this isn't a major deal, and you want to tell me that, he was only 0.08 or something like that, and you've got all these excuses, I will give you my word over the weekend. I will respond to every rational reason that you can possibly make that this program doesn't have a serious problem when it comes to cars, when it comes to vehicles. And I don't know how it goes away, Caleb.
Here's what's weird about it. So the Jaylen Carter thing happened obviously after he was leaving Georgia. So I never really put that on Kirby Smart. It was kind of like there were a couple of incidents Tennessee related by players once they were professionals. I couldn't hold Philip Fulmer accountable for that.
If it's a collection, I would argue that
I was getting there.
Okay.
I was getting there.
Sorry.
Since then, there has been a rash of traffic incidents. Now I want to be clear, they're all like misdemeanor types where, Dave, if it was 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, I don't know, like you wouldn't kick a player off a team for any of these incidents that any of them got into. It was them being like, it's one of those, Josh Pate said it best. You ever been outside like in a parking lot out of a movie theater or something like that, and you see somebody doing something stupid in the parking lot, and you're like, "Oh, that was dumb," and then the cops pull them over. Like that's really what we're seeing with these Georgia players. That's the type of traffic incidents they're getting into since that horrifically fatal one back involving Jaylen Carter in January of 2023.
Can I read Moondrop's Beauty, her post real quick? If you respect your coach and your school, then these things don't happen. Kirby clearly has a big discipline issue.
But wait, that's where I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to ask this question, Dave. Is it a discipline issue in the sense that what is Kirby Smart supposed to do if he has a set of rules of, okay, this tiny minor violation, I'm not going to punish you too heavily, because we would all agree you shouldn't punish somebody too heavily for that. But if it keeps happening, do you change your punishments? Even if it's a mild violation? If players keep doing it, do you have to say, oh, I'm going to get harder on this now? Because can you get harder on it when you weren't harder on it before?
I don't think you can. And I think ultimately, okay, you said Jaylen Carter, that incident happened after the fact.
It happened after the national title. And he was gone. Everybody knew he was gone.
Okay, right. So, but are you telling me that Kirby Smart had no idea that Jaylen Carter was a little bit wild and that some of his players were doing some crazy stuff? Because if he did, if he had no idea, he should have.
So you're saying Kirby Smart was letting other things happen and get by that we don't know about.
Yes.
And that's what's letting this boil over the way it has. That's what you're claiming.
Well, and my other claim is Jaylen Carter can play. So if Carson Beck gets a DUI tomorrow, do you think he's going to miss a significant game at Georgia?
No, but that's the thing. Most of these aren't DUIs. They're people
right.
doing something stupid.
Putting some. Oh, I see what you're saying. So now, if Carson Beck gets a reckless driving, you've got Kirby Smart painted in the corner saying, "This is my punishment." So that's what you get. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm saying these players
Smoky Mountain Red. They're all NIL related cars, and you should really, when you lay your head down at night, say a little prayer and hope that none of it happens to any of Tennessee's football players, because they're getting really fast cars as well. So you got to be responsible, but they have been.
Yeah, this is where my question to you, Dave, is, okay, you're a head coach. You have a philosophy. If a player this type of infraction, what would your punishment be for a player who does reckless driving? Something stupid, reckless driving. Would you say 1 game suspension, 2 game suspension, something like that?
How stupid?
Doing donuts on a road or drag racing somebody at maybe 25 miles over the speed limit or something like that.
Okay. Not that I've done donuts recently, but when I do, that's very safe. Drag racing is far less safe. So drag racing would be a big bad one for me. That would be a suspension. If you're being a little bit of a hillbilly doing donuts and you get a misdemeanor citation, that would not be a suspension at all.
Okay, how many games would you give for drag racing? Sorry.
1 first time and then probably 4 second if you did it again.
Okay, here's the problem. I think Kirby Smart has probably a similar level of punishments for those. The problem is they keep happening. If they keep happening, do you change your punishments going down? Not because it's not the same players. It's different players that are doing this.
It's hard, but here's what I would do. Like today, I would say team meeting, be there now. Guys, the rules have changed. This is embarrassing me. I've stuck my neck out for you. I've given you a scholarship. I've made a lot of you into great football players. I've made you a ton of money. And all I'm asking you is to not drive like a jackwagon. Okay? Just don't drive like a jackwagon. And you can't seem to do that. So here's what happens. The new punishment is reckless driving or above, you're suspended for the next game. And you lay down that law and you do never back off of it. And I still don't know that would work, to be real honest with you, because there would be some players that say, it's my car, I'll drive it how I want to. I'm making almost as much as him. Not literally, but you get what I'm saying. I mean, the money has made these players more emboldened. Don't doubt that for a second.
Oh, yes, I totally agree. And I thought,
on the other end of the spectrum, think about this. An active player, Brew McCoy, just held a golf tournament as a fundraiser for his own charity. This is a current college player. Think how bizarre that is for a second.
It's wild to think about. Brew is older, though. He's like 22, but I get your point.
But as many as cultured, and he was older because he stayed an extra year, Peyton Manning, as many great things as he did, he wasn't putting together golf tournaments in the offseason.
No, he wasn't. Is this how it was with Fulmer, or did Fulmer let more significant things slide than just a couple of traffic accidents, a bunch of misdemeanors?
More significant. It was far
more
worse.
Significant.
Yeah, you're not even. I don't think you're in the same ballpark if you're Georgia fan right now as you were Tennessee fan at that point.
Because I do remember the all season before 2005, there were 18 arrests or something like that, and the rock bottom, for those who don't remember, for Philip Fulmer, and it was right before he got fired. The rock bottom was when Britton Colquitt got drunk, crashed into a tree, fled the scene of an accident, and Fulmer let him back on the team.
Suspended him for 4 games, which was an odd suspension. Remember?
Yeah, he did. He suspended him for 4 games and then let him back on the team. Then it was just like,
actually,
you can't.
That might have been rock bottom, but to me, the most nefarious thing was meeting with a alleged victim at a restaurant the morning after she had been supposedly assaulted by a football player.
He did that.
That's something you can't do. I mean, that could have blown up. That could have got bad. And that's when and that's when I think Philip started to think he was a little bit bigger than.
That's really bad. Yeah, that's
tampering the witness. That could have easily been a felony.
I'm going to be fair to Kirby Smart on this too. I think Kirby Smart is going to try to get it back. I think Kirby Smart does care to a certain degree. Again, these are all misdemeanors, are not significant yet outside of the Jalen Carter thing, and Jalen Carter was gone from Georgia after that happened. Kirby Smart doesn't strike me as the type that would run from this the way Urban Meyer did. Does he strike you as that? Because Urban Meyer let the program go into hell in a handbasket and just bolted.
Yeah, Kirby seems like the guy that would like claw to hang on, even if it was bad for his health, his marital relationship, the program. He seems like the guy that I'm going to get this right. Yes, he does.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So I think Kirby Smart is definitely going to stick with this. He loves Georgia. And also, I think Kirby, I know that Kirby has dealt with, in the past, he has some, family issues and things like that he's clawed his way out of. So I think he's more equipped to deal with something like this than a lot of other coaches. I'll say that in Kirby Smart's favor. Urban Meyer.
Family issues. Is this something that we know that's public knowledge, or?
I don't really want to get into it fully. Okay. I just know that there's just things he deals with personally.
I tend to agree with Moon Drops Beauty. She says UGA is too far past at this point, Dave. Kirby waited too long. These are young men, kids, still really.
But guys, he's letting him get away with misdemeanor, stupid traffic things. He's not letting him commit double murders the way Urban Meyer did Aaron Hernandez.
Allegedly. He is Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
Okay, allegedly.
Oh, I've got to tell you one. Yeah, and I may make this a poll question. So, saw a group of people in from Buffalo. Why did I know they were from Buffalo? Because they looked really goofy and they had a bunch of Buffalo stuff on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guess the one jersey, the Buffalo jersey that the 16, 17-year-old had on. That was an official jersey. I mean, this was not a replica. I'm not saying game worn, but it was. Guess who it was? What Buffalo Bill was it? If you can tell me during the break,
I already bet I know.
That I'm going to hook you up with our brand new, we just got them in, NCAA T-shirts that a couple of people have ordered, so your orders are going out. But what jersey was this jackwagon Buffalo fan wearing while I try to show my friends around town in downtown Knoxville, and he's wearing this jersey of a guy that's just a little, if you can guess during the break, 2 minutes.
It's giving it
Big Bend 4x4, $29,743. A 2024 T250 low roof cargo van, $51,955. 24 model Ford F-150 4x4 crew cab, $46,929. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co. What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Christopher, email me. You won. It was O.J. Simpson. This guy at a restaurant had an O.J. Simpson jersey on. I didn't even know they made those. Caleb, did you?
It was obvious you were referring to OJ, by the way.
It took a while. People went Peerless Price for the Tennessee tie-in.
Why would you be mad about a Peerless Price Buffalo jersey, though? Like, who would be like, how would that be a bad look? I will say, though, you know, OJ is one Buffalo Bill who committed a double murder. but on the football field, Peerless Price's 75-yard touchdown reception against Florida State, that was a double murder of Mario Edwards and Sean Key, who got burned by Price.
Too soon.
Oh, like making jokes too soon?
You're talking about a guy. Let me ask you on the message board. If I told you that I got up and said something to that family with that son, would you think I was cool or a little psycho? Let me start with you, Kayla. Would you think I was cool for saying something or a little psycho?
Psycho. I'd be like, mind your damn business.
Okay. I was this close because the guy killed 2 young people. And I just think it's awful to pay him any sort of respect whatsoever. So I almost said something. My wife talked me out of it. She said it would have been psycho as well. So our poll question would have been, so mind your damn business.
Have you ever seen that picture of there's 3 people in a bar? It's like one's wearing an OJ jersey, one's wearing an Aaron Hernandez jersey, and another's wearing a Ray Lewis jersey.
And then a priest walks in. This is the question.
That would have been Tim Tebow.
Yeah, if you wear I misspelled it. If you wear an OJ jersey, you're blank. It's a psycho, weird, just a big electric company fan. Do you know who the electric company is, Caleb?
Who is the electric company?
That was the name of his offensive line.
Oh.
That was the nickname of his offensive line. So 36% say a psycho, 27% say weird, 36% say just a big electric company fan. It just blows me away that the dad wouldn't say at some point, here's a thought. why don't we get you a jersey of anybody else?
Okay,
Jim Kelly, just Jim Kelly, anybody.
What if your kid is a big fan of the Florida run under Urban Meyer and wants a non-Tim Tebow jersey from that time? Which one do you get? Percy Harvin, maybe? Is that the only one?
I guess. All right. There are snubs in sports, and I've said this before, that it is oftentimes not cut and dry whether this guy's a starter and this guy's not. Sometimes it's 51%, 49%. It's really, really close. So when guys get snubbed, they can view it as getting snubbed, or they can view it as I just have to get better. One guy that came to mind when I heard of Jaylen Brown getting snubbed from the Olympic team was Alvin Kamara. Still the most impressive junior college player that I've ever covered after junior college. Had a smile on his face, didn't care that he wasn't getting snubbed for Jalen Hurd because Jalen Hurd had gotten paid. And Alvin Kamara went out there and played his best, made himself into an NFL prospect. He got snubbed completely, but I think it was best for him because he had more tread on his tires and he always had a smile on his face. What Vol has gotten the worst snub, and I have a feeling that Heisman Trophy will come into this? Go ahead and give me some thoughts there if we can. I want to hear from you on the message board, but Caleb, you got a darn good one as well, and it actually deals with the Olympic team.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious snub was Candace Parker, 2016. The idea that Gina Auriemma left her off the Olympic team. I mean, she was not as marketable as Caitlin Clark is now, but she was at the time the most marketable WNBA player. Was that fair to say? Like, she was the biggest ratings draw for the WNBA. She was the best player in the WNBA.
And I don't want this to sound sexist, but she is strikingly gorgeous.
Strikingly good looking.
Which helps. I mean, Tony Vitello is a good looking man. I mean, so when you're doing, I don't know why I can't. What was the official reason the REM ever gave for not having?
He said she didn't do well in the tryouts, but like she was the best player in all the tryouts. This was all because she didn't commit to play for Auriemma, and he was still bitter about that. And he chooses the year Pat Summitt died to rub salt in that wound, which, I mean, that just speaks to how much of a sleazeball he is. That's the biggest snub.
Now, go ahead.
I was going to give you another snub that I think is kind of intriguing, and I wanted to know your thoughts on it. But I think Chris Lofton and Casey Clausen not getting drafted in the NFL and NBA were snubs.
I'll give you Casey 100%. I thought Chris height was an issue. Crystal
Look at the NBA today.
Well, that's true. I'm not sure it should have been an issue, but I think it was then. Crystal says Hendon Hooker. Smoky Mountain Red says Hooker not getting an invite to New York City at a minimum was BS. So let's rank these. Worst Heisman snubs: Majors, Peyton, or Hendon just not getting invited. If I had to rank them, I would say Peyton, Majors, and then Hendon not getting invited would be my third most egregious of the trio.
That's my ranking. That's exactly my ranking too. Actually, no, I'm gonna have Hendon not getting invited above Majors, and here's why. Paul Hornung winning the Heisman was the scandal. Majors did finish second. Between the two, Majors deserved it over Paul Hornung. But honestly, Dave, Jim Brown should have won that Heisman, even over both of them. And that was the real snub of that year. Majors finishing second to Paul Hornung was a snub. That was stupid. He was better than Hornung. But Jim Brown finishing behind both of them was absolutely ridiculous. He should have won that Heisman.
Would you agree that lock, stock, and barrel Peyton should have won? I don't know.
Easily. Peyton easily should have won it over Charles Woodson. And the only reason he didn't was because both of their last regular season games, a lot of people don't know this, Peyton and Tennessee struggled against Vanderbilt. And you remember that, Dave. They always struggled against those Woody Woodenhofer Vanderbilt teams. Always. Largely because, as you pointed out, Fulmer wasn't even preparing for Vanderbilt during that time.
What was the point?
And in that same week, Michigan beat Ohio State, and Charles Woodson had his best game in the biggest moment. And Heisman voters turned in their ballots before the SEC championship game because many people believed that the SEC championship game at that time should have been factored into the Heisman because not every conference played a championship game. So many people on principle said, we're not going to turn in our ballots, or we're not going to base the SEC title game for our ballots. Now, had they done that, had everybody waited till after the SEC title game, I think Peyton Manning would have won the Heisman. Because what he did against Auburn that's the best SEC title game performance in the history of the SEC title.
Well, and I've said this before. I mean, I think it's Peyton because he was clearly the best player that year. And I know people that worked at ESPN, Jimmy Himes and I have talked to some of the same people, have discussed it before. They wanted to get good ratings for the Heisman ceremony, which sounds stupid nowadays because you just read the paper the next day and find out who won. Do you sit through the whole stupid Heisman ceremony? I mean, who sits through that damn thing? So there were people at ESPN that wanted to get the best ratings possible. So they were pushing Big Ten opponents for regionality and to get more people viewing it. And they ended up going too far. And there were actually some people at ESPN that truly regretted how much they pushed some of the people they pushed, like Ron Dane. I mean, and Charles Woodson, though, to his credit, he was given the platform because ESPN wanted somebody from the Big Ten. And he had his Heisman moment against Ohio State. So I'm not shortchanging him for what he did at all.
Yeah, that was exactly it. It was the Heisman's about moments. And Charles Woodson, while Tennessee was struggling with Vanderbilt the last week of the season, Charles Woodson was having the game of his life against Ohio State, the biggest game of the year for Michigan.
Yeah.
And that changed everything. So
for those that don't remember, that was the one-handed interception, the punt return for a touchdown. He did everything, and everybody was watching.
Yep.
It literally is one of those things that like 15 things had to go wrong for Peyton Manning. And if any one of those things go right, then he's your Heisman Trophy winner. I still think it's one of the greatest snubs in sports, to be honest with you. And I'm not speaking of this, as you know, Caleb, from a fan's perspective. I'm speaking of I think he got all out screwed.
Oh, I agree. He absolutely got screwed. Another big Heisman snub, by the way, I'll throw this one out, is the most underrated Tennessee Heisman snub nobody talks about. No one ever talks about this. You always talk about Majors. You always talk about Manning. No one talks about Heath Schuler because it's not that Heath Schuler wasn't great that year, but Charlie Ward put up insane gaudy numbers, didn't he?
I remember thinking to myself, and you might want to check me on this, that if Heath Schuler had been the same candidate the year before or after Charlie Ward won it, that he would have won it easily.
I agree.
Can you double check the years? And we'll tell you a little something about Neubert Collision Center while Caleb does that, because Heath would have won it 8 years out of 10.
Fifth year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
All right, so Charlie Ward won it over Heath Schuler. Who won it the year before?
Gino Torretta with just 19 touchdowns at Miami.
He would have beat Gino, there's no question, with the same year that he had in his second place finish. And then who won it the year after had he come back?
This would have been more difficult. Had he come back, it would have been Rashawn Salem at Colorado. Rashawn Salem did rush for 2,000 yards.
Rashawn Salem. Yeah, that's fine. No, he was a very good football player. And that's back when it didn't have to go to a quarterback, that running backs were very much in play. No question about it.
We have to. I wanted to throw out this Heisman snub because it's actually the most underrated Heisman snub and the most clear-cut Heisman snub that Tennessee had. 1951, Hank Larcella should have won the Heisman that year. Over Dick Keismeyer for Princeton. Hank Larcella had 111 carries for 881 yards, averaged 8 yards a carry. Dick Keismeyer had 150 attempts for 861 yards, 20 fewer yards and 50 more carries or 40 more carries, but he had one more touchdown. That's absolutely ridiculous. And Tennessee was declared national champions that year. There's no reason Hank Larcella shouldn't have won the Heisman that year. And just a couple of lesser snubs from awards perspective.
What was his name again?
Hank Larcella?
No, the other guy.
Dick Keismeyer?
Yes. Isn't that a cream?
That's hot.
Oh my God, Dave.
What's the guy's name again? Did anybody else think that's a weird name? What's the guy's name again?
I don't know how you pronounce the last name. Dick Keismeyer. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
But a couple of awards.
I believe.
A couple of award snubs I want to bring up real quick. Travis Stevens should have won the Doak Walker in 2001. That was ridiculous that he didn't win the Doak Walker in
I
2001.
agree with that. I hadn't thought about it, but I agree with it.
The worst, Dustin Colquitt not winning the Ray Guy Award in 2003 was one of the most absolutely ridiculous snubs in history. Dustin Colquitt won 2 games for Tennessee that year. Everybody who watches this show knows I don't like punting. I think punting is the most overused play in football. I think it's stupid. It's a literal turnover. Dustin Colquitt beat South Carolina in Miami that year.
Yeah, well, I don't have an argument with either one of those. I think that would be fine. I do find it interesting that you think Hank Larcella was the bigger snub. Tennessee, as far as snubs, has there been anybody in the NFL draft that's fallen incredibly far? Just happened. Dalton Connect. He just got snubbed to fall where he is, and now he's playing well in the summer league. So, yeah, that was a snub, which was a little bit odd. Stay tuned. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Coming up, would Tony Vitello pull a guy in the middle of a no-hitter? Discuss that more with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Experience it all at Varner Ford in Clinton. Need a quick fix or maintenance? Visit our Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center. Keep your Ford running smoothly with the experts in our service department. Ready for your next Ford? Our sales team is here to guide you to this 24 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend 4x4, 29,743. A 2024 T250 low roof cargo van, 51,955. 24 model Ford F-150 4x4 crew cab, 46,929. Local you trust, experience you can afford. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
A little bit of this day in Tennessee sports history coming up here momentarily as we remind you we'll be broadcasting live from beautiful Dallas, Texas. Looking forward to that. SEC Media Days next week. Already got guests lined up that we're looking forward to visiting with. We'll see what happens when it's in Dallas, what the attendance is going to be like. Have you thought much about that, Caleb? It's a much further trip for basically the eastern half of the SEC. And a lot of people, I'm not going to share any names, but a lot of people that typically would go aren't going, including some pretty big major entities. So I don't know if this sticks. I think they're always going to like having it in Atlanta and Nashville once Nashville gets a road situation cleared up. And perhaps Birmingham, but I don't know that these outlying places like Dallas is going to be a good fit. That makes about as much sense to me as having it in Columbia, South Carolina. So then everybody from the West has to go all the way across the country. It's not centrally located. That makes no sense.
Yeah, you should not be doing this on the school. You should not be doing this in the places at the edge of SEC country. You should be doing it in the heart of SEC country, which is, I think,
Did you know this too? You're right. Did you know they're also doing it the same week that the Major League Baseball All-Star game is in town?
They did that on purpose. This is what's so frustrating. Greg Sinke's turning this into a tourist trip more than anything else. And it's not a tourist trip. It's a media event. It's a work trip. I mean, this isn't it's.
I hadn't thought about that. I thought it was equally as inept, but in a different regard. As did they just throw this thing together? Because I guarantee the Major League Baseball All-Star game knew for years where they were going to be. You didn't know where the SEC Media Days were going to be until probably 18 months ago.
Yes, but they didn't have to do this. They could have put it in Austin at least.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. And Austin, by the way, we think of Dallas and Austin as being big time different markets as far as size. Austin is like a top 15 market now.
Austin's huge. Austin's gigantic. Yeah.
When I went there, it was kind of like a neat little Chattanooga or an Asheville, kind of, or a Boise, Idaho, kind of had that small town kind of feel. But that was like 20 years ago. It doesn't have a small town feel now.
Dave, how far away are we from them? And again, I'm not saying I'm ever opposed to going to this place for like covering a game or anything like that, but not on a work trip like SEC Media Days. Greg Sinke, watch, he's going to put it in Miami next year, because technically that's in Florida where the SEC is, even though everybody's going to have to fly into Miami to do it.
Could they turn this into a touristy thing?
They've already turned it into a touristy thing. It should be in Birmingham every single year, which is where it's the easiest to do the job.
No, and I would be perfectly fine with it just being in an office space. It doesn't have to be someplace significant. I'm sure everyone remembers Paul Skenes. He was a fantastic pitcher for LSU. Well, he's cruising along in the 7th inning with a no-hitter. And nowadays, pitching is handled far differently. We saw that with Tony Vitello. My question for you, Caleb, you're cruising along in the 7th inning. You got a no-hitter going. Would Tony Vitello pull a player at that point? Because Tony Vitello wants to win, and he does play some analytics. Every good coach uses some analytics. Those that say they're not going to use it all are just ignorant. But Caleb, he also is a player's coach. So he would want that player to experience that. What do you think Tony Vitello would do in that situation?
I will say this. I can't know where he would go. I know this. Tony Vitello would think about the public reaction, though, and make a decision with regards to that, because Tony Vitello is a little bit of a Lane Kiffin. And so I'm thinking maybe
in a bad way. But you say that in a bad way.
I don't say that in a bad or good way. I say it just in an amusing way. I think Tony Vitello would go one of two ways. He would keep them in because he wants the no-hitter on the guy's resume, or he would pull them just to troll the fans in national media just for fun.
I think he does absolutely think how it's going to be perceived by the public. I'm not arguing with that, but I think you had to do that when you signed up to coach at Tennessee. Now, I don't think Lane Kiffin needed to call out Urban Meyer and call out all these different coaches on his first and only signing day at Tennessee, because Tennessee was already a solid program foundationally. They didn't need to do that. I could see I could see trying to get attention and doing that sort of thing, but not in this particular situation. I think Tony Vitello would stick by the kid and let him throw a no-no, especially because in college baseball, it's so much more rare. I mean, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, I think he would do it too. But it would also depend on when this is happening, though. I mean, Dave, if we're talking the NCAA tournament super regionals, he may not do it, because in that moment, you need that pitcher fresh for the College World Series. Or if it's a first game of a College World Series, I'm not so sure he does it. If it's a midweek game and, I almost said September, listen to me, in March, he might do it then. He might do it. I could see him doing it at that point.
The other thing that I think so many people, and I've talked to a lot of people in the community about Tennessee's championship, one of the things that people really like about it is Tony Vitello kind of did it his way. Would you agree that East Tennessee is kind of a do it your way sort of thing. I mean, we're a little obstinate. We don't like to be told how to do it. Well, coming out of the chute, when he started throwing out of the bullpen in the first 2 innings, I was like, this is insane. But finally, I watched it long enough. I understood it, and he was right, and he won a championship doing it. So I think there are a lot of people that like the fact that he's doing it his way as well and has won a championship doing so.
No, not Greg McElroy, because, jumping in and celebrating with the fans is so unbecoming of a head coach. Yes.
It's awful. The Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. Promo code HOOKED for 10% off. Also want to remind you that you can join Hooker's Corner. You can be a John. That's very easy to do. All you have to do is, how about this? I got what's a QR code right there? You scan on that thing, and just for $9.98, you are a John, and you're eligible for fantastic monthly prizes. Didn't have somebody claim a prize, so we're looking like the John Anderson autographed mini helmet is going to be our prize this year. By the way, Trevor, you won earlier for answering my pseudo trivia question. So email me at david@offthehooksports.com, and we'll take care of you with a book or a shirt. You can decide upon that. And also, just by being subscribed, you'll be entered in our great Garmin challenge brought to you by Rick Terry of Rick Terry Jewelry Design. Check him out. They have the Fire Opals, fantastic, affordable game day apparel that you will love. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This is